And we are recording.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. So just to give you a nice summary of what this panel is going to be about, this is our Protect the Environment panel for the So You Wanna series. So this is an informational career panel where students can learn from our alumni. We have one alumni on the panel today and also our community members about various career paths, industries, things you can do with your majors that all have to do with protecting the environment. So I will just jump in and introduce our three panelists for today. So we do have Lynn is the environmental educator and project manager for the Cape Fear River Watch. Our second panelist is Valerie. She is the publisher and editor for the Going Green magazine or publication. And our third panelist is Kelly. She's a coastal educator at the Bald Head Island Conservancy, and she is a UNCW alum. She actually graduated in 2017, so just ignore that little 14 down there. She is a 2017 grad. So these are our panelists. We will be diving in for the next 30 minutes. We're going to be asking the panelists questions, and I will go through and dive into those in just a second. But just so you know, after the 30 minutes, we will be breaking out into breakout rooms. So each panelist is going to have their own breakout room. Students can then dive in for the last 15 minutes of this session and ask questions. I know some of our panelists have a slideshow that they're going to pull up to go over a couple items. So definitely feel free to pop in and feel free to go into one that interests you. You can absolutely jump between the breakout rooms to do a little exploring. And I will say, when we hit that mark around 11:30 and we're sending you into the breakout rooms, if you have the newest version of Zoom, you will be able to select your breakout room without issue. If you haven't updated your Zoom, you might need help getting in there, and that's where we can help. You can just send them a message and say, I would like to join this breakout room. So if you need anything, as we said, just go ahead and message us in the chat box. But I believe we are all ready to get set up here. So diving in, Lynn, you can kick us off with the first question. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization and what you do in your role, and then what a typical day looks like for you?
Yeah, that last question is really difficult to answer, what a typical day looks like for me, because every day seems to be a little bit different. But yeah, I'm the environmental educator and project manager for Cape Fear River Watch. And Cape Fear River Watch is a nonprofit environmental organization, and we are tasked with taking care of the lower Cape Fear River Basin, mostly dealing with water quality issues. And we do that through education, action, and advocacy. So the advocacy portion is that we want to be the voice of the river. So anytime there are policy decisions being made that may impact the river, we want to make sure we're a part of those discussions. And then action pieces, we go out and clean up trash. We cleaned up 8 tons of trash out of our watersheds just last year alone. And we have science and programs, citizen science monitoring programs that we have going on. And then with education, we have just a plethora of educational programs, both for children and adults throughout the year. Was that all the questions? Did I answer those?
Yeah, and so it sounds like your typical day, it's not very cyclical. You might be doing a little bit something different.
Yeah, typical day, I could be leading kayak tours. I could be leading walking tours. I could be writing a grant proposal. It's so different every day. We have a strong intern program, so we meet all the time and they're on projects. So every day really is a little bit different at Cape River Watch.
Oh, that's great. Keeps it interesting.
Yeah, good mix of office work and field work.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And then Valerie, you can kick us off with kind of the same question. Tell us a little bit about your organization, what you do in your role there, and then what your typical day might look like.
Okay, thank you. And I relocated, so am I visible in the screen?
Yes. Yep, we can see you.
So in 2006, I started the area's environmental quarterly magazine called Cape Fear's Going Green. And we try to cover the whole range of sustainability over the course of a year. We have different themes, different issues. So one issue might be very heavily on bird watching and citizen science. Another might be on transportation. Our fall issue was heavily weighted covering native plants and their benefits and how to find them in the area. Um, a typical day. Well, like Lynn, every day brings its own surprises and challenges and activities. I have several currents that run simultaneously because I'm researching, writing, and publishing a magazine, also organizing and running a monthly environmental book club, which any one of you is welcome to join. Um, Doing an online presence, doing some community advisory work, community outreach work. So I'm on a 3-month cycle to create and publish the magazine, the quarterly issue. And these other activities are monthly or they run almost every day in the background. So um, a typical day would start out with information gathering. After I drink coffee and read the Star News, I then go online and I read my email. I'm on lists for all the different environmental organizations locally and many regionally and nationally. Um, and if I don't have an event to attend, most of my work day is in front of the computer, processing information, punctuated with dog walks and lunch and phone calls.
Oh, that's great. Sounds like a great way to break up the day. Great. And then Kelly, if you want to kick us off with the same question, tell us a little bit about what you do in your role and what a typical day might look like.
Hi guys, I'm Kelly. So I work for the Bald Head Island Conservancy. We are a little nonprofit located on Bald Head Island. If you guys don't know where that is, if you just kind of walk down the beach from Carolina Beach and Fort Fisher, you would hit us. But we are very small. So again, I don't have a very typical day. I am an educator, so a lot of my day is focused on either doing programs, writing programs, or kind of getting ready for another program. So I also will take care of our reptiles that we have on site. But also, since we are small, we're constantly helping with our other departments as well. So we have 3 areas that we focus on. One of them is preservation. So we have a pretty natural island, so we're trying to preserve different areas of it. And then we have conservation. So we're trying to protect the areas that might need a little bit more help. And a big part of this is our sea turtle team. So that is huge in the spring and summer. So that is starting to come up that we're planning for now. And then education. So I'm constantly helping out with other departments. Plus, because we're a nonprofit, we also have little projects as well, like changing tires or cleaning the bathroom or things like that. So we're kind of all over the place as well. I feel very lucky that I'm able to work from home a little bit while I'm writing programs. But most of my day is spent outside when I am at work. So very different day to day, especially from winter to summer.
I'm sure. Well, I'm sure with all the outdoor work, you might have had to adjust working remotely. You're like, I'm inside all day.
I still go to work. I'm only home 1 or 2 days a week now. So we're still commuting.
Gotcha. Okay, very cool. Well, on to the next question, and we'll go right back up to the top. So, Kaylin, can you tell us a little bit about the favorite part of your job to start with? And then can you share maybe something that isn't so glamorous about your job that maybe students aren't aware of?
Sure. Well, I just love children, and so I think for me, my favorite part of my job is being able to work with children and being able to pick the ages that I can work with. So because I direct the education programs, I can target certain age groups. So like I don't really want to work with kids younger than kindergarten because then you're kind of like changing diapers and stuff. And anything over 9th grade, they start getting a little sassy. So I intentionally design programs between the ages of or grades 3 and 7 because that's just a really enjoyable age group for me to work with. Because they are able to, listen, retain, soak up that knowledge. They're still curious and interested without having to act cool in front of their friends. And but I just love kids, and so being able to share knowledge that and my passion for protecting the environment with those age groups is definitely the most joyous part of my work. And I would say the thing that's not so glamorous, I think for any nonprofit group, grants are really important. So most of our income comes from memberships. We rent out paddle boats and canoes and kayaks at Greenfield Lake, so that helps support our mission as well. And then grants are huge. Like we have to continuously be writing grant proposals for grant funding. And so that kind of keeps you on your toes. You know that if those grants aren't coming in, that your job might not necessarily be secure. And so that's sort of the unglamorous part of the position, is that you're just writing a lot, which I don't think a lot of students, you know, are prepared for or know about when you think about going into biology or conservation or any sort of environmental protection. If you're going to end up with a nonprofit, then grant writing might be a piece of what you do.
Well, and I'm sure you get good at it very quickly if you're writing that many. So
Yes.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And Valerie, same question. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe the favorite part of your job and then something that isn't quite so glamorous?
Sure. I am very energized whenever I'm able to connect someone's interest or their curiosity with a response that will help them do something they want to do. Um, so if somebody moves to town and says, I really like the outdoors, how do I connect with the outdoors? I might recommend they go get acquainted with Cape Fear River Watch, because they're going to meet a lot of people who like to do outdoorsy things if they are attending lectures with and going on paddles with River Watch, or if they need to know how where to buy a rain barrel or how to learn about them. I know where you buy them. I know who gives classes and workshops in setting it up at home. So being the tie between what people would like to do, but how they can actually take the first steps to get there, always gets me excited. Even if I'm having a day where I don't feel like working, I'll get a phone call and someone will ask one of those questions, and I'll know where to send them, and then I'm set for the day. I can work all day then. Um, Not favorite. Three things came to mind, but parallel to the grant writing process that is so important for many nonprofit organizations. I'm not a nonprofit. I am a for-profit business. I sell advertising in the magazine, and that's what keeps us going. But even though I don't have to write grants, I have to spend a lot of time doing billing and ad sales and cultivating new advertisers. And talking to new advertisers and prospectives is fun, but the billing just feels like drudgery, as does putting the project to bed. Once I've gone to press, the mature thing to do is within a week to put all those files back where they need to be stored, throw away the duplicates, throw away the rough drafts, and I don't love it, and sometimes I don't even do all of it. I just save it all and hope if I ever need it, I'll be able to wade through it and find what I want.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing. And then Kelly, same question for you.
Oh my gosh. So I definitely have to say my favorite part of my job is just the differences day to day. I always tell people the more chaotic the job, the better I am at it. And the more I enjoy it. So I love the days where I have 1,000 things going on. And so that summertime where I'm teaching adults and teaching kids, and then I'm going out on the beach to look for a turtle, or we have a wildlife call and we have to bring a bird to the rescue center. Those are the days that I absolutely love. I love being busy. I love being hands-on. And I guess I agree a lot with your not so glamorous parts of your job. Some of that is definitely office work. I've learned that writing programs takes way longer than you think that it should. But also it's definitely my unique commute. I take a ferry to work every day. So Bald Head Island does not have any cars. So I take a passenger ferry and a golf cart to work every day. So in the winter when it's 40 degrees, imagine me on a boat. So that's definitely a unique challenge that we have. In the summer, the ferry is so much fun and I love it, but in the winter when it's raining, definitely not the most glamorous part.
I bet that's a long commute if you forget your coffee.
Oh yeah. And now with the masks, you need to finish your coffee before you get on the boat.
Oh, very true, very true. Great. Well, next question. And Kaylin, we'll start with you. What led you to your current position? How did you end up where you were?
Yeah, so I had a really interesting path. I got a degree, and I only have a bachelor's of science. I did not pursue my master's degree because I was offered a position right out of school and was just ready to start working, which I would not recommend these days. But so I got a degree in biology with an emphasis in wildlife management and fisheries, and then started working in the Florida Keys with the Nature Conservancy. Um, so I worked there as an environmental steward, and I would teach scientific diving and do some monitoring of damselfish and sea urchins. So diving every day, which was a huge passion of mine and still is. And then I worked for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service in the Florida Keys. I worked with the endangered key deer, which is it's a sort of like a mutant whitetail deer. They're super cute and they're highly protected because they're found there on Big Pine Key and nowhere else on the planet. And so highly protected, and a lot of issues came along with that as well. And then I got a job with NOAA, with the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary in the Florida Keys, and I worked with them for about a year or two. And then, so then I went further south. The Keys wasn't far enough south for me, and I took a job managing 3 nature parks in the Caribbean. So it was a little island called St. Eustatius, or Statia, and I managed a botanical garden, a national park, which was a dormant volcano, and the marine park, which was all the water that surrounded the island from the high water mark to 30 meters or about 100 feet in depth. So really it was on the island where I decided that environmental education was so important, because up until that point in my career, I'd been doing biological research. I've been doing, park management. I've been doing enforcement of, environmental regulations. And on that island, you could see all of the issues that are associated with environmental protection and conservation. They were like blown up. It was like a microcosm of all those issues. And I quickly realized that, people need to have a better understanding, a better base of conservation while they're children growing up, so that when they get into positions where they can have some sort of change, they understand and won't be so adverse to it, like I found a lot of people on the island to be. So I started education on the island for the first time, started going into schools and realizing that, especially in this day and time when kids are so connected to their media devices and have become so disconnected from nature, I think it's one of the most important things that anyone can be doing today is environmental education. So I've been lucky enough to be doing that with Cape Fear River Watch now for 10 years, and really, really like it. In between there, I did work for a consulting firm in Southern Louisiana. It was a huge consulting firm, and I was in the environmental department, and that's where I made a lot of money, more money than I've made at any of my other jobs, but I just didn't get the same satisfaction. I didn't feel good about going to work every day like I do now. It's a trade-off.
Great, thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah.
And Valerie, same question for you. What led you to your current position, where you are now?
Well, I created my position by starting my own company, but had worked professionally for a long time before that. No matter what kind of job I've gotten, I get asked to be the editor. So no matter what I do, I'm the one who notices that Philippines should be spelled correctly, or that the tone of a letter needs to not be antagonistic. It needs to be welcoming if you're trying to court somebody as a client. So no matter what I get hired to do, that's what I wind up doing. The only environmental related job I had early on was drawing duct work for a solar engineer, solar architect. I found a man who designed heating and cooling systems for passive solar homes and restorations of historic homes. It's kind of tricky to put air conditioning in an historic home without ruining the home. So I really enjoyed it. I worked for a man who was an architect and not a very good businessman. And so he should have just paid me to do drawings in the back room all day. What he did, what he couldn't resist doing was taking me along every site visit he did. So what he said we were doing was I was helping document the changes being made during construction. That's not true. He just liked to tell me how it worked and show me cool things that they were doing. So I got to work on a lot of really interesting houses, um, being retrofitted or new construction. I got involved organizing and running a solar homes tour in Virginia, and this would have been in the 80s, the 1980s. And then when the incoming president took Jimmy Carter's solar panels off the White House, a number of us realized that it was going to be hard to earn a living in the environmental field. And so many of us wandered off to do other things just to be able to pay the rent or get a mortgage. And I had a variety of writing jobs and administrative jobs throughout my career. Um, I was a senior technical writer for Lockheed Martin back when it was Martin Marietta in the IT department of their corporate headquarters in Bethesda, Maryland. And I did administrative kinds of things for a number of years just for the money and the skill. It never really spoke to me. And after I had lived in Wilmington for some time, I realized that there was a niche. There was a lack of a central clearinghouse of information and resources for people who wanted to incorporate more sustainability into their personal lives. And I kept thinking that somebody needed to start a magazine or some way that people could find out about rain barrels and Bald Head Island and what it has to offer and how to rent a canoe and that kind of thing. I kept waiting for someone to beat me to the punch, but no one did. So I started this magazine and um, just really was speaking to a need. I didn't really want to take on a project that big, but somebody needed to, and I knew how. So
I love that.
so I did. Um, yeah, I guess that's my answer.
No, that's great. It's very inspiring. And Kelly, same question for you. What kind of led you to your position? And I know you were graduated back in 2017, so I'd love to know kind of your path from leaving school, leaving UNCW to where you are now.
Yeah, my path definitely started even before getting to UNCW. I'll try and keep it short because it's a lot of ins and outs. But when I was really little, I was a very like artsy child. I really wanted to go into like art or music or something like that. But when I was 14, I went down to Florida to visit my cousin just to have fun. It was like a high school graduation present, and I saw a sea turtle lay eggs for the first time, and I was forever changed. From that moment, I was like, I'm going to go to school for marine biology. I researched all the schools that I could find, and I fell in love with UNCW, which I'm sure a lot of you guys did as well. I'm originally from New Jersey, so I'm not even from North Carolina. But when I was in school there, I tried to be as involved as possible, really get as much out of it as I could. I like being busy. So I did a couple internships. So I interned at the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Hospital, and then I interned at the Bald Head Island Conservancy. And then right before I graduated UNCW, I also got a job at the aquarium at Fort Fisher. And that was just part-time job, selling tickets, nothing crazy. And then right after graduating UNCW, I got an internship in Hawaii, working with hawksbill sea turtles. So I was hiking 11 miles a day to remote beaches to like go see if there's turtles there and help the babies get to the ocean, measure the moms who are laying eggs. But then I came back to the mainland US. I moved back to Wilmington because I loved it so much. I started that part-time job at the aquarium again. And I worked very hard to move up in my position there. So I went from selling tickets to working in the butterfly house to interning in the education department to being the part-time outreach coordinator, so the assistant. And then one of my coworkers was like, "Hey, you worked at Bald Head Island. They're looking for an educator." And I was like, "Cool, I'll apply. Why not?" But they were looking for a senior educator, so the position above me. I was like, "Oh, I'll throw my resume in there." And I got an email back immediately saying, "Hey, like we're looking for someone with more experience." I was like 23 at this point, maybe 22. And they were like, "We're looking for someone with more experience, but we're probably going to be hiring another person in a few months." And I had heard that so many times while applying to jobs. I was like, "I'm never going to hear from this company again. They're just being nice, like thanks." Um, a couple weeks later, it was announced that my supervisor at the aquarium was moving to Bald Head to be the senior educator. Um, and then a couple weeks after that, Bald Head reached out again saying, "Hey, we want you to apply for coastal educator." So I got the job and I've been here almost 2 years. I'm having a wonderful time, and that is my long, kind of weird story.
No, that's super helpful. And I think these kind of stories are so important for students to hear because everybody can get to their career, their current career, or in their industry in so many different ways. So having that insight is very helpful. And I will say it is around a couple minutes before 11:30. So I wanted to just talk about a couple things. I don't have time to go into another round robin of questions. But before we break off into our breakout rooms, all of the panelists do have the list of questions. There are a couple more that I'd advise students to ask about. One of them is, if you're interested in getting into a certain industry or a certain career path, how can you make yourselves marketable for that industry? So the panelists might have some information for you there. Asking the panelists, does your organization take on any volunteers, internships, part-time jobs that you might want to keep on your radar, and how you can learn about them? Most of the people connected today are in Handshake, our online job board. So that's a great way to stay connected with what people are hiring for. But definitely ask about that. And then I love this question. What's something you know now about your college experience, your major, your career that you'd wish you'd known as a college student? So maybe so those are just a couple ideas if you want to chat about it in the breakout rooms. But it is now 11:30, so we will go ahead and break off into the second session. And before the second part of this session, and before I do, I just wanted to show all the students on the call the schedule for the rest of the week. So obviously today's Tuesday, we're in the Protect the Environment session, but if any of these other sessions are interesting to you, they will be going on throughout the rest of the week, a very similar format to what we're doing here today. So definitely mark your calendar if you're interested in participating in any of those. But we are about to break out into the Zoom rooms, or the breakout rooms, excuse me. So again, you can just pop into any breakout room that interests you. Feel free to bop around to interact with more than one panelist. And then if you're having any trouble entering a room, just chat us and let Ricky know, and he can go ahead and manually add you in. And then you can either hang around until we all come back into the lobby, or if you're done chatting with all the panelists, you can leave from there.
All right, so I just opened all of the breakout rooms. And so panelists, you should see that prompt to join, and then you'll be able to join if you have gotten the Zoom update. If you have not, go ahead and message me and I can assign you to that appropriate Zoom link, or I mean breakout room, excuse me.